Joining me now is the Council on Foreign Relations, Lowy Distinguished Fellow in U.S. Middle East Diplomacy, and former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Martin Indyk. I do want to discuss with you today about the situation in the West Bank. Israel's withdrawn its forces from the city of Jenin on Wednesday. But first, can we take a step back here and can you explain for us why those forces were there in the first place?
So for the past 18 months, there's been a serious increase in the level of violence, mainly in the West Bank, as a consequence of a number of factors that are becoming like a perfect storm. Young, disaffected Palestinian militants who don't remember the Second Intifada in 2000 and on, because they weren't born then, so that they're not scarred by it or deterred by it. They have easy access to weapons that are smuggled in from Israel, Jordan, and even Lebanon. They have a target-rich environment of some 500,000 settlers in the West Bank who are operating on roads that they can easily use to attack them. And there is a crumbling Palestinian Authority and its security forces, which are no longer operating in the northern cities of Nablus and Jenin. And they have become effectively safe havens for these young militants, most of whom are not affiliated to the other terrorist organizations like Hamas or Palestine Islamic Jihad, although there is some kind of effort by Hamas and Palestine Islamic Jihad to take advantage of their militancy. But they're, for the most part, operating independently. And they're operating out of a refugee camp in Jenin in particular. As a result of this interaction of terrorist attacks and Israeli army responses, over 150 Palestinians have died in the first 6 months of this year alone. And I think it's something like 23 Israelis have been subject to terrorist attacks. And so, it's referred to as the cycle of violence that just continues to spiral, where terrorist attacks lead to Israeli army raids and more terrorist attacks, and so it goes on.
Israel did withdraw its forces just this week in the city of Jenin. So do you think that this is an indication that the violence will cease, or is this just the beginning?
Well, it's in the middle. As I said, it's already begun some time ago, but there's no way that their raid will end the violence. Indeed, there's already been a terrorist attack today and one Israeli killed in the West Bank. But I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before there was another terrorist attack in Tel Aviv. And so the circumstances that I described are like a perfect storm. And Israel doesn't have a magic bullet for stopping this from happening. And sending in a brigade with 1,000 soldiers, aircraft, drones, may have had some effect on the infrastructure in the Jenin refugee camp. But most of the militants fled before the army could catch them. 12 were killed. They all seem to have been associated with militancy, but that's a small amount. And as I said, because the settlers are easy targets and plenty of weapons, and these groups can operate from places they don't have to operate out of the refugee camp, it will continue. The only answer to this is an answer that's not available, which is that the Palestinian Authority be bolstered, supported, Palestinian security forces go in and take control. They're too weak and too unwilling to do that job in these circumstances. And the alternative of the Israeli army occupying places like the refugee camps is just a recipe for increased violence, because friction will become daily between the Israeli army and the militants. So it's a pretty dismal prospect. given the circumstances.
You're not sounding too optimistic. So in your opinion, what would you say needs to happen now, aside from the solution you said that won't happen? What is the viable solution you see to de-escalate these tensions immediately then?
There is no simple way out. The situation has deteriorated to the point where it's very hard to arrest it. Egypt and Jordan and the United States were brought in to support the Palestinian Authority and try to get Israel and the Palestinian Authority to cooperate again. That made some progress, but then the Israeli government, which is a government that's held hostage by its far-right members who are pushing for the collapse of the Palestinian Authority rather than strengthening, had blocked Israel from doing the kinds of things that would help the Palestinian Authority regain credibility and the ability to police the territory that's supposed to be under its control. So I don't see that the only real answer here is available at the moment, and I think that the United States, Egypt, Jordan have reached the point of exasperation with this Israeli government and its settlement policy and its willingness to allow settler vigilantes to burn Palestinian villages. I mean, there's a kind of, they're fed up, and there's a kind of, I think, attitude of, well, it's your problem, it's your backyard that's on fire, you need to fix it. And as I've already explained, the Israelis don't have a good way of fixing it, except what they call mowing the grass. Just going in like they did, usually in smaller numbers, and try to pick up the militants or kill them and hope that deters others from acting. But it's not working, and there's no reason to believe that it will work just by using more force. And it's a slippery slope, as I explained, towards Israeli reoccupation of these areas, which will only make matters worse.